So let's begin with a little introduction to the characters included in this pattern. We have, of course, the star of the show, baby Jesus, laying in the manger. We have Mary and Joseph. We have the shepherds. We have the angel. Then we have the three wise men who came later. The sheep, the donkey, the ox. Okay, so I have two different versions of this pattern. I have the free pattern, which is found on my blog, and that pattern includes baby Jesus and the manger, Mary and Joseph, the shepherds, the angel, and the sheep. Now that version is free on my blog. Now I also have a premium version of the pattern which includes all the other characters. That one you can purchase, the printable ad-free pattern. You can find that in my site. You can find it on my Etsy shop or on Ravelry. And that one also includes the patterns for the rest of the characters. So the three wise men and the donkey and the ox. Now, after having this pattern out for a couple years now, I am adding in this supplemental video tutorial just for the things that I get most questions about. By far and away, the one I get most questions about is this little sheep. This uses a puff stitch. It's more of an intermediate portion of the pattern, and I just get questions about it all the time. People having a hard time identifying exactly where to put the puff stitches. Should it go into the chain or should it go in between? And then also I'm going to show you how to make sure you can align these little feet. That tip can certainly be applied to the ox and the donkey as well, but I actually have never even once gotten a question about the ox or the donkey, so I'm not including that one in this tutorial. Gonna do the sheep with you. Of course. The next one I get questions about is the manger, and the main thing with the manger is which one is the top and which is the bottom. So basically, as you're making the manger, you'll be crocheting it like this, and it'll end up being kind of like a little basket. And sometimes it's tempting to make this inside be like a cradle and have that be the top. But this is actually the bottom. So there's going to be kind of like a basket, and that is where you are going to insert the hay into the top. All right, so here is the top. So this is actually the flat part of the manger on top. But the under here where the kind of yarn tails or the knotted ends of the hay are is the inside of the basket. And this is just hot glue, which is what I use to keep it all in here and kind of keep it contained. And then I just use either like a brush or a comb and comb out the hay to give it this great little texture. So I did want to go over that. I'm not going to be crocheting the manger with you because it is just a kind of a square that's crocheted around a starting chain, but that is the question that I get the most that some people have a hard time seeing in the pictures. I just wanted to cover that here so you could get more of a visual of that one. So I am going to also be doing the angel's wings with you. I'll walk you through how to do one of them. They're both the same, and so I will walk you through how to make one of them because it begins in a magic circle and it goes out in rows from there, and that's sort of a new technique to some people, okay? So I'm not going to do the body of the characters. They're all done the same way in just regular single crochet, increasing and decreasing to get the shape. Super simple amigurumi techniques for all of the bodies of the characters, so I'm not going to do that here. And the reason I'm just not doing absolutely everything is because this tutorial will be super long, and I just, like I said, I get repeat questions about certain things and not many questions about anything else, and so I am hopeful that this tutorial will be a great supplement to this pattern for you as you work through these characters. All right, so let's get going on the sheep first. So I'm going to start right at the nose. It begins at the nose and it works its way all the way back to the little bum. So we are going to start with a magic circle. And into that magic circle, we are going to make 6 single crochets. All of the animals begin with a magic circle at the nose. Okay, we're going to close up that magic circle. And then we are going to increase by just a little bit. We're just going to be increasing by 2 stitches in round 2. So I'm going to do a single crochet in each of the next 2, and then an increase in the next stitch. And I will do that twice. So we're going to begin. Oops, picked up one too many loops there. Single crochet in the first and the second stitch, and then an increase in this next stitch, so 2 single crochets in that stitch. Okay, and then a single crochet in each of the next 2, and then an increase in the final stitch of the round. Okay, so go ahead and close up that magic circle a little bit more. And at this point, go ahead and bend this, flip it right side facing you. So the nose starts to curve the right direction. I don't join my rounds, I just keep on going with them. If that drives you crazy, you can certainly join rounds if you want. Whoops, wrong hook. Okay. So that, after round 2, you'll have 8 single crochets. So for round 3, we are simply going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So that will be 8 single crochets around. Eight. Okay, it's trying to flip the wrong direction on me again. There we go. All right, at this point I am going to kind of stuff that yarn tail into the tip of the nose just to get it out of my way. I might actually snip that a little bit. Okay, so you got your little nose. Picking up where we left off. So for round 4, we're going to increase by another 2 stitches. So we're going to place 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches and then an increase. And we'll do that twice going around. So 1 single crochet in each of the next 3. And then an increase in this next stitch. And I'll do that one more time. Okay, so after that round, which was round 4, you're going to have 10 stitches around. For round 5, we're going to increase one more time. So we're going to place 1 single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches and then an increase in the next stitch. And then we're going to do that again. So 1 single crochet in each of the next 4, 3, 4, and then ending the round with an increase. All right, so after round 5, you've got the great little start of the little nose, the sheep's nose. And our next round, we are going to start diving into our puff stitches. So right now we have 12 single crochet around, and here is how we do our puff stitch. We're doing a 2 double crochet puff stitch. And the way that you're going to do that is directly into this very next stitch. Okay, you're going to go and yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up. And then we're going to do that again. We're going to yarn over and into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up. Okay? Okay, and then what you're going to do is yarn over and pull through all of those loops on the hook. Okay, and you're going to end with a chain 1. Okay, and what I am going to do is I am going to mark that stitch with a stitch marker. We're not marking the chain, we're marking the actual stitch that was made. The chain kind of closed the puff, and I'll show you what that looks like again with this next one, because that is the stitch that you're going to be crocheting in as you come around. You're not going to crochet into the chain. All right, so let's do that again. So for the next one, yarn over, insert into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over again and into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up. Now you're going to yarn over and pull through all of those. Okay, and what you'll see is that little stitch is made right there. That's not the chain. The chain is the one right before it. It's a little bit smaller, probably, your chain. Maybe, I guess it depends on your tension. But this was our first stitch. Then you've got the chain, and then you've got the next stitch. And now we're going to close that puff with a chain. But you can see the chain does not count as part of your stitch count. It's just closing your puff. So right now we have 2 puffs. Even though it looks like you have 4 stitches, you have 2 stitches and 2 chains. I'm going to show again. This is the part that a lot of questions come from, is where am I putting my stitch? That's why it's important to mark your first stitch, okay? Let's do this again together. We're going to do a puff into this next stitch. Yarn over, insert into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up. Yarn over again into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up. Now we're yarning over and pulling through all of those loops on your hook. Okay, that's creating your stitch that you're gonna crochet into, and then we're gonna chain to close. Okay, so you can see this cute, fun little texture. I just love it so much. Okay, so let's keep going with this, all right? We're gonna speed up a little bit. We're gonna start doing our puffs. We've got 12 of them. Okay, puffs all the way around, right? So get to it, and I'll meet you at the end of this round of puffs. You're gonna have 12 puffs all the way around. Okay, I'm on my last puff stitch of the round. Yarning over, pulling through all of that, and chaining 1, okay? Look at how fun that is. I just love it too much. So if you count with me here, the puff stitches, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are 12 stitches, not including the chains in between. Okay, so in round 7, we are going to be doing puff stitches, and we're also going to be creating the little tiny ears. All right, so the big question that I'm answering now is, where do I put my puff stitches? Okay, so we're going to be placing our puff stitches in between our puffs from the previous round. You can certainly place your stitches through the loops. I have tried it that way, and for whatever reason, it just creates bigger gaps in between the stitches for me, and I want this to be kind of a nice tight texture. So I'm just going to go ahead and be putting them in between the stitches, okay? So we're going to start straight off. I'm taking my stitch out, my stitch marker out. We're going to place 2 puff stitches before we start our ear. So right into this very first space, we're going to place a puff stitch and close it with that chain 1. I am going to mark that actual puff stitch with my marker. That's marking my first stitch, not the chain, the puff stitch, okay? And then my next one's gonna go right in between these next 2 puffs. So puffing away. Okay, chain 1. All right, so those are my 2 puff stitches. Into the next space, I am going to be placing a slip stitch so I can chain off and create the ear. All right, so in between these next 2 puff stitches, we're going to slip stitch, and we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now we are going to, in the second chain from the hook, and in the next 3, so there's going to be 4 all together, we are going to place single crochets. Okay, so we're going to have 4 single crochets. So we're skipping that first bump. I'm doing the back bumps here because it just makes a cleaner, tighter look. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's the little ear. And then into that same stitch, in between those puffs where we placed our first slip stitch of this ear, we're going to slip stitch again. Okay, this counts as a stitch. Okay, so this ear basically counts as a stitch. So far we have 2 puff stitches and an ear. Okay, now we are going to puff stitch in the next 6. Okay, so straight into the next puff, or in between the next puff, 2 puffs, we are going to do 1. Okay, we're going to do 5 more. Okay, we've just made our way over the top of the head, so the ears kind of hang low. So we just made our way over the top, those 6 stitches. And now we're going to make our second ear. We're going to do this in the exact same way. So in between these next 2 puffs where we'll be placing our next stitch, we will do a slip stitch and then 5 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skipping that first back bump from the hook, we're going to go into this second one with a single crochet. And then in the next 3 back bumps, single crochets. For a total of 4 single crochets. Okay, and then into that same stitch, another slip stitch to close off that ear. Okay, so there's our second ear. And then to end our round, we've got 2 more puff stitches. So we've got these 2 spaces in between, 1, 2. Okay, so straight away into this next one with another puff stitch. And 1 last puff stitch. And chain 1. Okay, so after round 7, we have 10 puff stitches and 2 ears. So that's keeping our stitch count the same. So we started the round with 12 puff stitches from round 6, and now we're ending with 10 puff stitches and 2 ears. So that's 12. All right, that's how we're doing the stitch count here. Oh my gosh, it's just so stinking cute. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to simply place 12 puff stitches around. Okay, so this is another one that gets a little bit tricky because now you have ears in these places, right, where there was a puff stitch before. So where the heck do you place your puff stitch? So for this next round, we're simply doing 12 puff stitches. So go ahead and take out your stitch marker. Into that space right there, we're going to be placing our first puff. 1, 2. Okay, marking that stitch. So that's 1. 2. Okay, here we are. I am going to place my puff stitch into this spot where we made our first slip stitch. And then you're going to have to go kind of around the back of it and do the next one in between. All right, so I will show you how to do that, but that's where I'm going to be placing my next puff stitch, right there. I know that can feel a little bit confusing. Where the heck do I put that puff stitch? It doesn't really matter as long as your stitch count stays the same. Really, I'm just one of those people where it's like, it's a little bit of an art and a little bit of a science, right? But this is where I put it. Put it into where that little slip stitch was made. Puff. Okay. So my next one, I kind of need to come around to the other side of the ear, right? So for our next one, we're going to kind of just push the ear forward, and we're going to do our next puff stitch into this space on this side of the ear, right next to that puff stitch. So you're going to have to imagine this as being a stitch. So you've got a puff stitch on this side of it, and now you got a puff stitch on this side of it. So I'm going to just kind of push that ear forward and do a puff stitch right in between where I made those slip stitches for the ears and to the side of this puff right here. Okay, so that just kind of makes your ear poke out. Gives it that great shape, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4 puff stitches. Okay, make my way across over to the other ear. This is 5. 9. Okay, so our 10th one again, we're on this side of the ear again, so I'm going to put it into that little space where my slip stitch was made, right here on the side of the ear. So that's 10, and I'm going to push my ear forward. I'm going to make my 11th puff right here on this side of the ear. And my final puff right in between those last 2 puffs from the round before. And that will be 12 puff stitches around. Okay, so let's take a look. There's a little head coming together, and that's so cute. All right, so at this point, take a minute to take a little piece of black embroidery thread and embroider the eyes. I'm not going to do that right now because that's a simple task that you can do off camera. All right, so for our next round, so this is round 9. The questions I get on this round are, what the heck is a puff stitch increase? And basically, a puff increase and a puff decrease are similar to other types of stitches increasing and decreasing, where we're going to place 2 puff stitches into the same stitch for an increase. And then for a decrease, we will bring 2 puffs from the previous row into 1 puff, okay? And this is going to start to shape the head and bring it around for the neck, kind of tapered at the neck, all right? So let's go ahead and do this round together. So we're on round 9. We are going to begin with a puff increase into this stitch space here. Okay, that is going to be 2 puffs in that same place. So go ahead and begin with your first one. You're going to want to mark that one. Okay. And into that same space, we're going to do another one. That same space, just plain old puff stitch. Okay, so you have 2 puffs in that same space. Okay, so we're going to do that same thing into this next stitch. We've got another puff increase. So we're going to do 2 puff stitches into this next stitch. 1 and another one in there. Okay, so we've got 2 increases. So we just created 4 puffs. So now what we're going to do is place 1 puff stitch in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we are going to do a puff stitch decrease over these next 2 stitches. Okay, and then we're going to do another one over these next 2 stitches. And this is probably one of the trickier stitches, or just maybe one that you're not familiar with. It's not necessarily tricky, it just might not be one that you've done before. So here's how we're going to bring those 2 stitches into one. So yarn over, insert your hook into that next stitch and yarn over and pull up. Okay, and we're going to do that again into that same stitch, just like you're about to make a puff stitch. Okay, but instead of yarning over here and pulling through to complete that, we're going to do that same thing into this next stitch straight away. So yarn over, place your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up, yarning over again into that next stitch, yarning over and pulling up. Now you're going to yarn over and pull through all of those stitches and then close. Okay, so that makes 1 puff stitch from 2. Okay, so let's do that again together. So we used those 2 stitches. So now we're going to decrease over these 2 stitches. So yarn over, insert into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up. Do that again into that same stitch. And instead of yarning over and closing that puff stitch, we're going to go straight into this next one, just like you're going to make another puff into there. Okay, yarn over, pull through. So now we've got 3 more stitches here, and we're going to simply place puffs into each of them. Okay, so we used these 2. So the next one we've got is this one. We're going to puff stitch into that space for 1. 2 and 3. And now you've got kind of this shaping. So we're decreasing over the top, bringing her neck down, shaping over the back of the neck there. All right, we are getting there. All right, so let's do round 10 together as well. There are a lot of increases and decreases in this one, and it's going to significantly shape your sheep. So let's do it together. All right, so into this next stitch, we are going to do 1 puff. Okay, we're going to mark that one as the first stitch of the round. Okay, so now what we've got here is we've got the front of the neck, kind of like the throat neck going down the front, and we're doing a whole bunch of increases to add a bunch of material right here to shape this part. Okay, so let's do that together. So into this next stitch here, we're going to place an increase. So this was an increase from the round below. So you have 1 stitch here and 1 stitch here. Okay, so this is where we're going to be placing our first increase of these 4 increases. So we're going to do 2 puffs into that same space. Okay, so that's puff increase 1. And then into this next stitch, we'll do another increase. Okay, gonna do another increase here. So again, this was an increase. So we're going in between those stitches. So 2 puffs in that same space. Right, so that's 3 increases. We're gonna do 1 more increase in this next space. Okay, so you can see how that brings the material way down. It just makes it, expands it a lot. Okay, so that's going to be the front of the sheep. All right, so now we are going to do 1 puff in each of these next 2. So just regular old single puff. So you got 1 and then 1 in the next one. Okay, so now we're coming back over the top of her head. So we're going to do a couple decreases. We're going to do 2 decreases over the back here. All right, so we're going to be decreasing over this one here and this one here. So we'll be bringing those together. So decreasing, so we're going to act like we're beginning a puff in that spot, but we're not going to close it. We're going to go straight into this next space here. One with 2 yarn overs. And now we're going to close up that stitch, all those loops, and chain. Okay, so now we brought those two together. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. Okay, so this one's been used up by that stitch. And now we're going to this space, and we're going to do another decrease. Straight into this next one. 1, 2. Yarn over all of those loops and chain. Okay, so that just brought that down, shaped it a lot. And then we're going to end with a puff in this final stitch. And let's look at what that just did to shape the sheep. Okay, so that was round 10. A lot of shaping happened there. So we brought a whole bunch of puffs down here, and we decreased a whole bunch of puffs there, and we shaped the head a lot. Okay. All right, so for the next 2 rounds, I'm not introducing any new techniques. We're just going to do some puff increases and some puffs. So that's going to be for round 11 and 12. So go ahead and do those. I'm going to just do those off camera real quick, and then I will come back with you for round 13, which is when we do bobble stitches for these little feet and legs that are kind of tucked up underneath while she's laying down. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get going on rounds 11 and 12, and I will meet you here as we begin round 13. Okay, so let's get going on round 13. So this involves puff stitches and double crochet bobble stitches, which is what we use to create the feet. And one thing that I'm going to say at this point is your row ends kind of towards the top of the sheep over the back. The point of this round is we want to make sure that our bobble stitches are aligned appropriately, like where legs would actually be. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is if your tension, which is probably different a little bit than mine, if for whatever reason your row ends a little bit further this way or a little bit further forward, the point here with the counting of your stitches is that your bobbles end up in the right spot. So that being said, the round 13 is written to where you begin with 6 puff stitches and then place your bobble for the first foot, and then 2 more puffs, and then another bobble stitch. So the 2 legs are separated by 2 puffs, and then ending out your round with 8 more puffs. If you have to do 5 puff stitches at the beginning, or maybe 9 puff stitches at the beginning in order to get to this place where your leg should be, then do it. You just need to make sure that, of course, on this side you're, either adding or eliminating that number so that your stitch count stays as 18. That's the point. So one tip I'm going to give you here, if you would like, so that you don't even have to count. I mean, again, you want to make sure there's 18, but take a couple of stitch markers and actually look at your sheep, find the ears, and go down from there and figure out where your legs should go. And again, they're going to be spaced by 2. So I am going to go ahead and just mark mine. So say we put 1 bobble here, and then we're going to have a puff here, and then the next bobble here. Let's look at what that would look like. That looks pretty centered to me. So that's where I want my bobble stitches to end up. All right, so picking up where we left off, let me make my way down, and I'll do a bobble stitch with you in case you've never done one before. So we're going to do 6 puffs. 1, mark that first one. And 6. And speaking of tension, I can already tell Major that my tension is way looser today than when I made this one, because the little stitches are super tight on the first one, and today they're much looser. Totally fine. We're just going to use white stuffing. We won't be able to see it, but I am noticing that not only is my sheep bigger, I have bigger gaps in between than when I originally did my very first one, which this guy is so old. He's like a few years by now, so... Anyway, okay, so now we have 6 puffs, and now we've got our next space is going to be our bobble. So this is what we're going to do for a bobble stitch. So we're going to yarn over, and we're doing a 5 double crochet bobble stitch for this foot. You might have done a 4 double crochet bobble, 3, whatever, but for this pattern it's a 5. So we are going to yarn over and place our hook into that next stitch and yarn over and pull up. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook. Okay, so that's our first of 5. So 1. So we're going to do that again to that same stitch. We're going to do that same thing 5 times total into this same stitch. So that was 1. So for 2, we're going to yarn over, place into that same stitch, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2 of the loops on the hook. Okay, that's 2. Got 3 more, so yarn over, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and now with the 6 loops on the hook, I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of those 6 loops. Okay, and that is a double crochet bobble. Okay, so let's chain to close that. And as we make our puff into this next one, you want to make sure that that bobble is going to bobble outwards towards you. So we'll go straight away into this next space with our next puff. We're separating our 2 legs by 2 puff stitches. There's our first one. Okay, so you see how that bobbles out. Okay, so that's our first little leg. Okay, so 1 more puff stitch in between the legs here. Okay, so now we're going to do our next bobble in this next space. So yarning over, pulling up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all in that same space. Yarn over, pull through all of those loops, and close it up. Okay. Again, those chains do not count. Just the stitch itself counts. And now we're going to end our row, our round here, with puff stitches in each stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and puff my way to the end of the row. Again, making sure that bobble is puffing out. Okay, so you've got your 2 little feet there in front and aligned with the head. Okay, so I'm going to finish off my row here. I'll meet you there and we'll take a look at what it looks like. Okay, so I have just finished my round 13, and we're going to take a look at what that looks like. So this is really creating the shape of this sheep. We've got the head done. Again, you're going to embroider the little eyes in there. You could certainly do that now. There's plenty of space if you haven't done it already. And the main part of the kind of the width of the body. And we've got the 2 little bubbles for the first 2 feet. Now, I am going to let you do the rest of the sheep on your own. I was originally thinking I was going to do the whole thing, but I feel like it would be super repetitive because now we've got our head made with our ears. We've talked about how to puff increase, how to puff decrease, and how to do the bobble stitches. And I think that you can take it from here. So you're just going to do the rest of the body. You'll do 2 more bobble stitches for the other 2 feet, and then the tail is also made of a bobble stitch. So again, making sure that that tail is aligned, towards the top during that row that you are doing the tail. You just want to watch the alignment of where your feet and your tail end up, and you are going to be good to go on your little sheep. All right, so let's go ahead and do these angel's wings together next. I'm going to do one of the wings with you. They're both exactly the same. Now I am using a different yarn for this. I'm using actually a 100% wool just because I wanted to add a little bit of texture. I did that same thing with the Wise Men's accessories as well. I don't know, I thought it would be fun to kind of add a little bit of texture rather than just stick with the DK cotton yarn. So that is completely optional. So I am going up a little bit on my hook size because this yarn is a worsted weight instead of a DK weight. So that is why that looks a little bit different. Okay, so the wings are going to begin with a magic circle. Okay, so we're going to slip knot onto our hook with that magic circle. Now, what you're probably used to with magic circles, or what you might be most used to, is going ahead and crocheting straight back into this magic circle to make like a circle. But we're actually going to not do that. We are going to be crocheting out in rows attached back into the magic circle, and then we're going to close the magic circle, which is what creates this shape of the wing. So I will show you how that's going to work. Okay, so beginning straight away for row 1, we are going to chain 17. Okay, so I've chained 17. We're going to be working with half double crochets for these wings. So we are going to skip that first back bump from the hook. Again, I always work through the back bumps because it just makes a nice clean first row. So beginning in that second chain from the hook, we are going to make a half double crochet. And we are going to half double crochet in each of the chains thereafter. So after this round, as you make your way back to the magic circle, you are going to have 16 half double crochets altogether. Okay, I'm on my last chain here, back at the magic circle, doing my 16th half double crochet. Okay, so here you've got your magic circle down here, and you've got your first row of 16 half double crochets. All right, now what we're going to do to end this row is we are simply going to make a slip stitch into the magic circle. Okay, and then we're going to chain 1, and we're actually going to turn, whoops, I just lost my chain. Let me redo that here. Chain 1. And then we are going to turn our work. We're going to leave this magic circle here. We're going to turn, and we are going to work our way back up that little first row of the wing. We're going to be working through the back loops only, which is what creates this ribbed texture. We're still doing half double crochets, but we are going to be working through the back loops only. Okay, so beginning in that very first stitch, again, we've got the chain, so we're skipping the chain, and into this very first half double crochet here, we are going to do a back loop only half double crochet. So what that looks like is what you would normally do is be putting your hook through both of the loops. And instead, we're going to be just using this back loop right here. Okay, so we're going to do 13 half double crochets. So we're going to stop short of the end of this chain. Okay, so there's going to be 3 stitches that are not going to be worked. Okay, again, visualization here. This is going to be this little part here. We're stopping short of the end of the wing. So half double crochet through the back loop only. 1. Okay, back loop only. That's 12 and 13. Okay, so stopping short. This is what we're going to use to shape the tips of the wings, right? And then we are going to chain 1 and turn. Okay, working through the back loops only again, we're going to half double crochet in each of these stitches back down to the magic circle. So you're going to have 13 half double crochets through the back loop only for this row as well. Okay, make my 13th half double crochet. Okay, so I've made my way back down to the magic circle. Once again, we are going to end this round or this row by making a slip stitch into that magic circle. Okay, so that was row 3. We're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn. We're going to work our way back up through the back loops only once again towards the end of the wings. This time we're going to do 10 half double crochets. So again, we're going to be stopping short. Back loop only, 10 half double crochets, back up. 10. Okay, so stopping short of the end, we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn, and we're going to do 10 half double crochets through the back loop only, all the way back down to that magic circle. 9 and 10. Okay, I'm going to end that round by placing a slip stitch into that magic circle. Okay, we're going to chain 1, turn, be skipping that chain and skipping that slip stitch, just like we have been. And this time we're going to do 7 half double crochets back up. Back loop only still, 7 half double crochets. 7. Okay, chain 1 and turn through that back loop only, half double crochet back down. So you'll have 7 half double crochets going back down this row as well. And 7. Okay. Slip stitch into that magic circle. And what you're going to do at this point is you're going to fasten off. Okay, there's your wing. And what you're going to do now is you're going to take this magic circle and you are going to close it up. Pull it and close it. And that is what gives you that super fun wing shape. All right, so you're gonna do that twice. You got one wing here. You're gonna do that twice, and then you are going to sew them onto the back of your little angel. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. I would love it if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel so you will be the first to know about all the new tutorials and free crochet patterns that I put out. So thank you so much. Thanks for crocheting with me.